afternoon, everyone. I need to make mics for tall people, so I fluctuate in volume as necessary. I'm grateful to be here on today. I want to thank NHS for inviting me. They gave me about 5 minutes. I'm going to take 6.5. Start my timer now, so I don't go over. But about 2009, I was a new teacher for the Cleveland School District. I had rented an apartment in downtown Cleveland, so I was definitely living in the city. I was playing in the city, and I really thought, that I had it going on. End of the first year's lease, they increased my rent by a lot. And I said to myself, wow, this is not what I budgeted for initially. But I went ahead, I was able to do it, so I went through the following year, still downtown, and then at the end of that lease, they increased my rent again. And at that point I began reflecting, I said, my rent is high enough that I could be paying a mortgage on a house. But every month I'm writing this check to this company who is making money off of me, and at the end of the day, it's not doing anything for me, and I won't have anything to gain from it. So as my economic savvy began to rise, I decided it was time to find me a home. Then at the end of the school year in 2011, the school district laid me off. So that shocked my home ownership thought process for a while. I was upset. I did have to sub in the district as a substitute math teacher for the next school year. But what I realized as I went through that, is sometimes, even though an idea or a desire is birthed in you, it's not the season for that to come forth. And so I got through that year, and in the interim, I began to talk to Mariah Harris. And this is the part where I just want to give credence to NHS. Because we sat down, and in this process of being laid off, I started to look at my future, and I realized, if I ever get laid off again, I need to be in a position to where I am comfortable enough that if the district does whatever, I can still survive. And so through conversation, I had to come to grips with the fact that I had bad credit. And in 2011, buying a house would not have been beneficial for me anyway, because if I got a house, I would have had high interest. And so me and Mariah sat down, I gave her my credit report, put it all on the table, and we set up a plan. And I followed that plan. And while that plan went through, I executed. I did get called back into the classroom. And if we fast forward to 2013, my credit had improved and I was ready to buy a house. So I had been saving up, but Mariah came to me and said that we have this great program called CityLIFT. And she explained how it works. I didn't know. I know as a teacher, I was not making a whole lot of money. But as I looked at the guidelines, I wasn't sure if I would qualify, because I know that most programs prefer you make next to nothing. And so I went to the thing that was at downtown at the new convention center, and I stood in the line, I got through, and I found out that I actually did qualify. So that was good news for me. And so I went through that process, found a home, put a bid in. Turns out that the husband and wife were fighting, and the husband wanted a divorce, and the wife was being honorable, and the house was in both of their names. And so she would not come down off her asking price. She would not give any closing costs. And the house, my bid sat for about 2 months, until I realized that dream was over. Now I'm thinking about CityLIFT, and this deadline, and I'm like, okay, I have this opportunity that's about to fly away from me, because this couple are in the middle of a bit of divorce. So as I searched for another home, we found another blockade. And this continued for maybe the next 6 months. But it got to the point where I was so over looking at houses that I just kind of decided I'm going to go on with life. And if this thing happens, it's going to happen. If they are able to give me the money, I'll be able to get it. And if not, then, it must not be meant to be. 2 2 months before the school year was over, I just happened to be looking online, and I found a wonderful house, aesthetic-wise. And so I went, I looked at it. The person who lived in it, he actually built it. He's a contractor. And so he built this house. And so he built it, of course, he and his wife's taste. He built it to perfection. Everything was, the roof was double shingled. The beams on the inside of the walls, you usually do double beams. He did triple beams. He really did the whole house up. House had been kept up wonderfully by his wife, and they were an older Mexican couple, and they were leaving Cleveland because we had a bad winter that year, and they decided they were over it. And so that's why they were putting the house on sale. Long story short, this house, by the middle of that summer, became my home. I had set a goal before I even started the house buying process on how much money I was willing to spend. I knew at that time I was in school to be a principal, and I wanted to be able to buy as a teacher so that when I became a principal, I wouldn't get hungry and want to go buy a house that was a whole lot of money, causing, of course, my expenses to go up. So I had set a goal, went to the bank, then allowed them to tell me how much I was approved for, told them how much I'm willing to take. With the CityLIFT money, I was able to get this house for the exact dollar that I had went to the bank for. The exact dollar. And that's my time. That's a good point to close. That's a good point to close on. But when I look back at it, as I went through the home buying process and the home buying classes, when you factor in taxes and the things, insurance, I really, without the CityLIFT money, would have been paying way more than I had budgeted for in my week-to-week salary. So I am grateful for the CityLIFT program because it allowed me to realize a desire that was inside of me, and it made it very much attainable. As Mariah stated, I live in Cleveland, I work in Cleveland, I go to church in Cleveland. I play when I shop in the suburbs at the mall. But I do get my groceries in Cleveland as well. Yeah. So I am definitely a testament that the CityLIFT program is definitely something that is beneficial. I am a young professional. I live in Cleveland. I'm proud of where I live. And I am grateful for the opportunity to be assisted in realizing the American dream, as we call it, a little piece of the American pie. So again, thank you, CityLIFT. Thank you, NHS, Neighborhood Housing Services of Greater Cleveland. I appreciate it, and I look forward every chance I get to tell everybody about you all services. Thank you.
Shops in the suburbs. So, Brian, on behalf of NHS of Greater Cleveland, we want to provide you the certificate of appreciation on just being able to speak today and being an amazing example of why we do what we do.